There is a method for growing onions that makes traditional gardening look like a deliberately inefficient waste of space. One single basket or vertical container, 100 onions harvested from that single unit. 0 land ownership required. 0 backyard necessary. 0 digging through rocks and clay. 0 weeding on hands and knees in summer heat. 0 property taxes on garden plots. This is not theoretical yield or marketing exaggeration. California gardening documented 42 onions producing 25 pounds of harvest. This came from just 2 square feet of vertical growing space. Traditional ground gardens require 6 to 9 square feet for the same yield. The mathematics reveal that vertical basket growing produces approximately 3 times more onions per square foot than traditional in-ground methods. The documented research spans decades and multiple continents. Square-foot gardening systems showed 9 large bulbing onions per square foot in raised beds. Vertical systems consistently exceed this by growing upward rather than outward. The same floor space that produces 9 onions in soil produces 40 or more in stacked containers. This knowledge threatens industries that profit from your belief that food production requires land ownership. The real estate industry needs you believing gardens require backyards. The landscaping industry needs you believing soil preparation requires professional intervention. The seed-starting industry needs you believing complex germination systems are necessary. The agricultural equipment industry needs you believing tractors and tillers are essential for vegetable production. A plastic laundry basket costs $3. Onion sets cost pennies each. The method requires nothing more than these cheap materials and basic knowledge that anyone can acquire in 15 minutes. Yet most Americans believe they cannot grow food because they lack land, space, equipment, or expertise. This is the vertical basket method for growing onions. The technique that produces 100 onions in the space of a single chair. The ancient knowledge that modern industries desperately need you to never discover. Today, we are opening the file on this remarkable growing method. The 5,000 years of onion cultivation that humans managed without garden centers. The science explaining why vertical growing outperforms horizontal planting, the conspiracy of industries that profit from manufactured helplessness, and exactly how to grow unlimited onions starting today with materials you already own. If this matters to you, subscribe and hit the bell. The file is open. There is a vegetable that humans have cultivated for over 5,000 documented years across every civilization that left written records. The onion, scientifically known as Allium cepa, holds distinction as one of the earliest cultivated crops in human history. According to research published by New Mexico State University's Agricultural Extension, onions grew in Chinese gardens as early as 5,000 years ago. They appear in the oldest Vedic writings from India dating back millennia. Archaeological evidence confirms onion cultivation in Egypt by 3500 BCE. Onion consumption traces back to the Bronze Age, making it one of the most ancient food sources still consumed today. Onions became staples because they were less perishable than other foods, transportable across distances, and easy to grow in various soils. They were useful for sustaining human life during periods of scarcity. Ancient Egypt elevated the onion to sacred status. The Egyptians believed that the concentric rings of an onion symbolized eternity, making it central to their religious practices. Onion paintings appear on the inner walls of pyramids and tombs, spanning both the Old Kingdom and New Kingdom periods. Priests were frequently pictured holding onions or covering altars with bundles of their leaves. The pyramid builders, those thousands of laborers who constructed the monuments that still stand today, were fed onions. Slaves who built the pyramids consumed radishes and onions as dietary staples, according to documentation from archaeological research. General Ulysses S. Grant famously declared, "I will not move my army without onions," during the American Civil War. This reflects how this vegetable had remained essential to human endeavors for 50 centuries. The average American now consumes over 20 pounds of onions annually. World production exceeds 105 billion pounds each year. Despite 5,000 years of cultivation using soil, water, and human attention, modern marketing says you need expensive equipment. There is a mathematics of space efficiency that vertical growing exploits, while traditional gardening ignores completely. Traditional in-ground cultivation follows spacing recommendations that have remained essentially unchanged for generations. Agricultural services recommend planting onion sets 2 to 4 inches apart in rows, with rows often a foot wide. Square foot gardening methodology recommends 9 large onions or 16 scallions per square foot. These spacing recommendations optimize horizontal growing where plants compete for the same sunlight, the same rainfall, and the same soil nutrients. Every onion planted in traditional rows occupies ground space that cannot simultaneously grow another onion. The ground is the limiting factor that determines maximum yield. Vertical growing eliminates this limitation entirely. When onions grow in stacked containers or vertical systems with multiple planting pockets arranged upward rather than outward, the floor space becomes irrelevant. The actual growing area multiplies with each additional tier, while the footprint remains constant. California gardening demonstrated this principle using a 7-tiered vertical planter occupying approximately 2 square feet of floor space. Each tier contained 6 growing pockets. 42 onions grew in total, producing 25 pounds of harvested bulbs. Traditional ground planting at 9 onions per square foot would require approximately 5 square feet to grow the same 42 onions. The yield per square foot of floor space exceeds 20 onions using vertical methods versus 9 using traditional horizontal planting. This represents more than double the productivity from identical footprint areas. A single vertical unit producing 100 onions requires approximately 5 square feet of floor space. Traditional gardening requires approximately 11 square feet for the same yield. For apartment dwellers and balcony gardeners, this mathematics transforms food production from impossible to practical. The balcony that cannot accommodate a traditional garden suddenly supports enough onion production to supply a family year-round. There is a simplicity to the basket method that makes expensive growing systems completely unnecessary. The viral video showing onions growing in old plastic baskets demonstrated what industrial gardening suppliers hope you never discover. A laundry basket, a storage container, or any vessel with adequate drainage can become a vertical onion production system. The basic method uses any basket with openings. Laundry baskets work perfectly because their construction includes holes sized for onion growth. Fill the basket with any reasonable growing medium, including ordinary potting soil, compost, or even pure coconut coir. Insert onion sets through the side holes with the growing point facing outward. Fill additional layers and insert more sets as you build upward. Plant sets across the top surface as well. A standard laundry basket, 12 inches in diameter and 18 inches tall, can accommodate approximately 50 onion sets when planting through sides and top. The sets grow outward from every surface, creating a sphere of onion production from a single container. A stack of 2 or 3 such baskets creates a vertical column, producing over 100 onions in floor space, measuring 1 square foot. The growing requirements remain identical to traditional cultivation. Onions need consistent moisture without waterlogging. They need approximately 6 to 8 hours of sunlight daily. They need 120 to 150 days from planting to harvest. They need nothing more than these basic inputs, regardless of whether they grow horizontally, in ground, or vertically in baskets. The harvest timing follows the same indicators as ground-grown onions. When the tops begin falling over and bending toward the ground, the bulbs have finished growing and are ready for harvest. The entire basket can be disassembled for harvest, or individual onions can be pulled from their pockets as needed. The growing medium can be refreshed and replanted immediately for continuous production cycles. There is a commercial infrastructure that profits from convincing people that food production requires expensive inputs. The gardening industry generates billions in annual revenue, selling products and equipment to people who want to grow food. This industry has no incentive to promote methods requiring nothing more than discarded containers, bulk soil, and cheap onion sets. Garden centers sell raised bed kits, costing hundreds of dollars when scrap lumber achieves identical results. They sell specialized seed starting systems when yogurt containers work perfectly well. They sell premium potting mixes when municipal compost programs provide free material. The information ecosystem surrounding home gardening reflects these commercial incentives. Gardening magazines rely on advertising revenue from equipment manufacturers. Gardening websites monetize through affiliate links to products. Every platform that could share free methods instead promotes purchased solutions, because purchased solutions generate income. The basket method appears on no seed packets, no extension service bulletins, no garden center displays. It generates no advertising revenue, enables no affiliate commissions, and creates no opportunities for sponsored content. It simply works quietly and cheaply for anyone willing to ignore the commercial messaging. There is nutritional value in homegrown onions that makes even small-scale production meaningful for family health. A medium-sized onion contains only 60 calories, while providing 20% of the recommended daily value for vitamin C. According to South Dakota State University documentation, onions contain cancer-fighting compounds and chemicals that reduce blood cholesterol. Research suggests they promote insulin production and may reduce risk of Alzheimer's disease, according to University of Missouri publications. The health benefits extend beyond individual nutrients. Onions have been used medicinally for thousands of years across virtually every culture that cultivated them. Ancient Greek athletes consumed large quantities before competitions, believing onions improved their performance. Roman gladiators rubbed onion juice on their bodies to promote strength and endurance. The physician Hippocrates prescribed onions for various ailments, recognizing their therapeutic benefits. During World War II, Russian soldiers applied onions to battle wounds as antiseptic treatment, according to historical documentation. Throughout history, folk remedies attributed curative powers to onions for ailments ranging from insomnia to hemorrhoids. Modern research has validated many traditional beliefs about onions' healthful properties. The concentration of beneficial compounds increases in freshly harvested onions compared to those stored for extended periods or transported across distances. Commercial onions travel an average of 1,500 miles from farm to consumer. Spending weeks in storage and transportation before reaching grocery store shelves, homegrown onions go from soil to kitchen within hours, preserving maximum nutritional potency. The economic calculation favors home production even before considering nutritional advantages. 100 onions purchased at retail prices costs approximately $50 to $100 depending on location and quality. 100 onions grown in baskets costs approximately $10 to $15 in materials that are largely reusable across multiple growing seasons. The first harvest pays for the system permanently. There is historical precedent for space-efficient food production that industrial agriculture deliberately displaced with land-intensive alternatives. Traditional agriculture across Asia, particularly in regions with high population density and limited arable land, developed intensive growing methods that maximized yield from minimal space. Chinese market gardens produced remarkable quantities of vegetables from tiny plots using techniques refined across thousands of years. These methods were not primitive precursors to modern agriculture, but sophisticated systems optimized for constraints that are increasingly relevant today. The industrialization of agriculture prioritized mechanization over space efficiency. Tractors require rows wide enough to drive through. Harvesting equipment requires standardized spacing that machines can navigate. The entire infrastructure of modern farming optimizes for equipment operation rather than maximum yield per unit of land. Home gardeners have no tractors requiring wide rows. They have no harvesting equipment demanding standardized spacing. They have human hands capable of reaching into vertical containers and baskets arranged in whatever configuration maximizes their available space. Industrial constraints do not apply to household food production. The rediscovery of space-efficient methods represents return to knowledge that never disappeared, but was simply ignored by systems designed for different purposes. Urban farms in Tokyo, Singapore, and Hong Kong produce significant quantities of vegetables using vertical methods because their land costs prohibit extensive horizontal cultivation. Economic pressure forced innovation that American abundance allowed ignoring. American apartment dwellers face the same space constraints as Asian urban farmers, but receive none of the cultural knowledge about intensive production methods. They believe food production requires land, because American agricultural tradition emphasizes extensive rather than intensive cultivation. The basket method represents knowledge transfer that geography delayed, but economics now demands. There is practical information that anyone needs to implement this method, starting immediately with materials available in most households. Any container with drainage holes or mesh sides works for vertical onion production. Laundry baskets, milk crates, wire storage baskets, and purpose-built vertical planters all produce results. Solid containers can be drilled or cut to create planting holes in sides. The holes should be approximately 2 inches in diameter, sized to allow onion bulbs to expand outward without restriction. Onion sets, the small dormant bulbs available at garden centers for a few dollars per hundred, produce fastest results. Seeds require 8 to 10 weeks of indoor starting before transplanting. Sets can be planted directly into containers and begin growing immediately. For first attempts, sets simplify the process while demonstrating that the method works. Growing medium can be any well-draining mix. Potting soil works, compost works. Coconut coir mixed with perlite works, garden soil works if it drains adequately. The medium needs to hold moisture without becoming waterlogged. Drainage holes in container bottoms prevent water accumulation that causes bulb rot. Position containers where they receive 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. South-facing balconies, patios, and windows provide adequate light in most locations. Supplemental lighting extends growing possibilities to spaces with limited natural light. Onions tolerate less than ideal conditions, better than many vegetables, producing smaller bulbs rather than failing entirely when light is limited. Water when the top inch of growing medium feels dry. Onions need consistent moisture but suffer when roots sit in saturated soil. Container growing typically requires watering every 2 to 3 days in warm weather, less frequently in cool conditions. The confined growing medium dries faster than ground soil, requiring attention but not expertise. Harvest 120 to 150 days after planting when tops fall over naturally. The falling tops signal that bulbs have finished sizing. Pull onions, shake off loose soil, and cure in a warm, dry location for 1 to 2 weeks before storage. Properly cured onions store for months in cool, dry conditions. There is a future where more people discover that food production requires nothing they do not already possess. Every person who grows onions in a basket becomes one fewer customer for grocery store produce shipped from distant farms. Every family that produces their own vegetables becomes less dependent on supply chains vulnerable to disruption. Every apartment dweller who discovers container gardening becomes proof that land ownership is unnecessary for food production. The knowledge cannot be contained once people begin sharing results. Social media has already spread awareness that traditional gardening assumptions are outdated. Videos showing harvests from balconies and patios demonstrate possibilities that extension publications never mention. The commercial interests that benefit from manufactured helplessness cannot suppress information spreading through personal networks. One basket growing 100 onions from a single container, 5,000 years of cultivation history confirming that this vegetable requires nothing complicated. Space efficiency mathematics proving that vertical methods outperform traditional planting by factors of 2 or 3. Industries profiting from your belief that food production is beyond your means. The basket costs $3 at any discount store. Onion sets cost $10 per 100 at any garden center. The knowledge cost you nothing more than the time spent reading this far. Everything required for growing unlimited onions is now in your possession. The file is now completely open for everyone. What happens next depends entirely on what people choose to do with this valuable information that could change their relationship with food forever. Subscribe now and hit the bell to see what other simple growing methods were deliberately buried so industries could profit from selling complicated and expensive alternatives.